Ah, yes, the World Baseball Classic, where every so often the best players from all around the world compete to represent their countries, while Major League Baseball organizations pray that their players don't get hurt. In this video, I'm going to rank the teams from worst to best. Let's get to it. Before I get started, if you are new to the channel, think about subscribing down below to help us get to 30K by opening day. Hit the like button, the bell button, the share button, hit all the buttons. Okay, here we go. I'm going to go pool by pool. I'll go A, then B, then C, then D. Let's start off in Pool A and talk about the Netherlands. Where I think their strength lies is in their infield. They got some bats here, starting off with Xander Bogaerts, one of the best shortstops in all of Major League Baseball. Still crying myself to sleep every single night that he is not on my Red Sox. Going to the Padres this past offseason, but we all know what he can do. One of the best shortstops in Major League Baseball. A very good bat for this lineup. You got Jonathan Schoop, not a whole lot with the bat last year with the Tigers, but very good defensively. Speaking of defense, how about Andrelton Simmons, one of the best defensive players of all time, not with a Major League team currently, but we all know what he can do with the glove. Good veteran player. And speaking of veteran players, how about Didi Gregorius? Not a whole lot with the Phillies last year and ended up getting DFA'd after 63 games. But Didi Gregorius, he's still, trying to find his way back into the major leagues. Can he end up getting onto a team at some point? We'll have to wait and see. But we all know what Didi has done in his career. I think he'll be a good veteran presence for this team. And speaking of another veteran, remember Vladimir Valentin. Now, not a whole lot in the major leagues over his career. 511 at-bats, only a 655 OPS. But he was probably most remembered for hitting 60 home runs in 2013 in a single season in Japan. That is just incredible. My goodness. We just saw Aaron Judge hit 60 plus home runs this year, but you don't ever hear about that one. That one's pretty good if you ask me. But over the last few years, not a whole lot going on with him, but we all know this is a power bat. He has played in the WBC in the past, so let's see what he can do this year. On the pitching side of things, they are a little thin pitching-wise, but you do got someone like a Jair Jones. Remember him? I think he finished third in Rookie of the Year voting, if my memory serves me correctly, back in 2008. But man, Jair Jones at one point was really good with the Atlanta Braves, but as of late hasn't done a whole lot. He's pitched a few games here or there internationally, but he is on the roster on the pitching side. And another guy is Kenley Jansen on my Red Sox. I don't think he's going to be pitching in the group stages, but if they get deep into the tournament, into quarterfinals, semifinals, then that's when Kenley Jansen could get over there. He is on the player pool when it comes to the pitching. Now, overall, when it comes to the Netherlands, you got some good bats here. The infield definitely is a strength, in my opinion. On the pitching side, a little thin. They do got some prospects there, but not really a whole lot of big names. So for the Netherlands, I'm going to go in the middle. I'm going to go a B. Let's move on to Chinese Taipei. I think they have the potential to be a sneaky team in the World Baseball Classic. One guy they do have is Li Lin, the MVP of the Chinese Professional Baseball League from last year. He was really good. Over 109 games, hit 335 with a 907 OPS overall, 14 homers, 83 RBIs, 22 stolen bases. He can play multiple positions. No wonder he was the MVP. Take a look here. We have, I think I got this right, Kung Kwan Galigalao. He was with the Indians, now the Guardians organization, from 2014 to 2019. He was okay over 6 seasons in the minor leagues, 374 games, hit 268 with a 760 OPS overall. This is a guy where he's only 28 years old, but this is a guy, I think he's going to be a solid player for them in this tournament. They got some other ones here. Now, I think I got this right. Chai Sen Chen. I think I got that right, but this guy's an on-base machine. Take a look at his career stats over in the CPBL over the last 7 seasons. Hit 349 with a 416 on base. I mean, this is an on-base guy. Put him at the top of your lineup. He can get some stuff going for you. He walks more than he strikes out. Every single season, actually, he has walked more than he has struck out. Now, you do have also Yu Chang just signed a deal with my Red Sox this offseason. He's going to be more of a bench guy, but for them, could be a pretty solid player. Overall, we'll have to just wait and see how he does. But you got some minor leaguers. As of right now, you got Sung Chae Chen. He's with the Pirates. More of a speed kind of a guy. Has a future hit tool of 55 possibly. Hasn't done too much in the minor leagues as of right now. He was a rookie. He was at the rookie level in 2021. He was an A-ball last year, but so far the on-base numbers are looking pretty good with him, and he's got speed, man. 33 stolen bases last year, so that's a pretty solid player. You got Zhu Wei Lin. This was a guy, he's not in the majors currently, but he was with my Red Sox there for 4 seasons, kind of going back and forth between the majors and the minors. He had 1 game with the Twins back in 2021, so hasn't seen, major league or minor league competition here over the last few years. Well, actually, he was with the Mets. I apologize. He was with the Mets last year. He didn't do too well at the minor league level, so let's see if he can do anything in this tournament. On the pitching side of things, not a whole lot of pitching stands out for Chinese Taipei, but they do have K-Wei Teng. He's at AA for the Giants as of right now. Not too much of a fastball, but he's got himself a pretty good slider. But that's pretty much it for him as of right now. In AA last year, over 28 starts, he had a 4.54 FIP, 5.22 ERA. Had over 11 strikeouts per 9, but the command doesn't look all that great. With Chinese Taipei, they got some guys here that I like offensively. Not a whole lot of pitching. It would be nice if maybe they had just some more major league talent on here. I think that could go a long way. For right now, Chinese Taipei, I'll go a C. On to Cuba, and they definitely have some star power here in the offense led by Luis Robert. This guy, I'm just waiting for him to just tap into some MVP form at the major league level. The potential is there. The ceiling is through the roof. He just hasn't been able to tap into it. He's had some health issues over the last couple of years. Last year, only 98 games at 284, 12 homers, a 111 WRC plus. But this guy, he can hit for average. He can hit for power. He has speed. He's good in the field. I think he's going to have himself a pretty good year with the White Sox if he can stay healthy. And his teammate, Yoan Moncada, also plagued by health issues last year, only 104 games. He did not have a good year at all. Only hit 212, a 353 slugging. I'm looking for him to bounce back this year. And you also have former major leaguer Yoenis Cespedes. Man, oh man, I haven't seen this guy in a long time. But we all know Yoenis Cespedes. Maybe he's not really there he doesn't have that major league talent really anymore. But in a tournament like this, with a ton of minor leaguers playing, I think, international players as well, I think Yoenis Cespedes could end up having himself a pretty good tournament. Nonetheless, good veteran guy to have on your team. And when it comes to the pitching side, though, they're not as strong when it comes to the pitching. You do have some guys. You got Roenis Elias. He is right now in AAA with the Chicago Cubs. He was with the Mariners last year, 7 games. He was okay. Had a 3.52 ERA, 4.42 FIP. Doesn't strike out a whole lot of guys, but I could see this guy being pretty solid in this tournament. You also have Miguel Romero. He's at AAA right now with the Oakland A's. Who knows? Maybe he could get to the major leagues at some point. Hasn't been able to break through, but hey, with Oakland, hey, anything's possible at this point. But not good last year over 38 games, a 7.76 ERA, a 6.71 FIP. I don't know, not a whole lot there. 5 strikeouts per 9, 5 walks per 9. But hey, maybe, who knows? Maybe this tournament he can end up figuring something out. And we also have someone who's pitching right now, or he was pitching in Japan last year, Levon Moinello. He was actually really good last year. Taking a look, over 53 games, he had a 1.03 ERA. He had almost 15 strikeouts per 9, 3 walks per 9. Look out for him. He could end up having, a pretty good showcase here, and maybe, get the attention of some major league teams. But Cuba, they definitely have some star power here. They've performed on the world stage for just years now, performing in the Olympics. I think Cuba, all around, pretty solid team. I think they could use some more pitching. I do like the offense. I'm going to put them at a B. Let's talk about Panama. They're going to be stronger on the pitching side of things, but they do have Christian Betancourt, catcher for the Tampa Bay Rays, over 101 games last year, hit 252 with a 101 WRC plus. I think it's pretty valuable to have a catcher on your team, a catcher that is in the major leagues. I think that could go a very long way. But like I said, they are stronger on the pitching side of things, more relievers than starters. And the guy that is going to be leading the way, in my opinion, is Jaime Barria, a 2.61 ERA last year with the Angels, a 4.39 FIP. Not a whole lot of strikeouts, but doesn't walk a whole lot of guys either. Doesn't give up a ton of home runs. I think he could be pretty solid. You do have a Paulo Espino. He was with the Nationals last year. Not great numbers over 42 games, a 4.84 ERA, not a whole lot of strikeouts, doesn't walk a whole lot of guys. You got Javi Guerra, who was with the Brewers last year, 18 games, not great numbers, a FIP of 6.17. Justin Lawrence, he was with the Rockies last year, 38 games, an ERA of 5.70, but a FIP of 3.39, had over 10 strikeouts per nine, so maybe that could end up being pretty valuable for this team. And then you do have someone like Jose Ramos. He's in the low levels of the Dodgers minor league system right now, 22 years old. Has raw power, 60 raw power. That's a pretty good grade, if you ask me. Didn't do a whole lot at high A last year, but at A ball, he was pretty decent. Hit 277 with a 391 on base and a 518 slugging. So there is talent on this team. Again, they are more, in my opinion, reliever heavy, not a whole lot of standout starting pitching. But I think, to me, when it comes to this tournament, starters, you got to remember, this is going to be kind of like spring training for a lot of these starters. They're working their way up. They're building up their innings. So I think relievers could actually really come into play in this tournament. So for Panama, I'm just going to go a C as of right now. And the last team for Pool A, we have Italy. I think Italy is one of the more underrated teams in this tournament, and the guy that I'm going to talk about first, we got Vinny Pasquantino, the Italian nightmare. Man, this guy was really good last year. 72 games, hit 295, a 383 on base, 450 slugging, a 137 WRC plus. He is going to be really good in this lineup. They got other guys like David Fletcher on the Angels. Not a whole lot of great numbers last year, but David Fletcher, he's been around in the game now for a little bit. This is going to be a good guy to have on your team. Nicky Lopez, he was good a couple of years ago, had a down season last year. Let's see if he can pick up the pace again this year for the Royals. But hey, a guy, he's shown he can get the bat on the ball. He can get on base. I think he's going to be good for this lineup. And you got a couple of prospects here. Sal Frelick is a guy that I think could make an impact for the Brewers this year. He has been awesome in the minor leagues. In AAA last year, over 46 games, at 365, a 435 on base, a 508 slugging. Not a whole lot of power for him, but he's going to get a lot of hits. He's going to give you speed. He's going to get the job done and then some out in the outfield. And speaking of prospects, we got Dominic Fletcher on the Diamondbacks. Look at the numbers that he put up in AAA last year. Hit 301 with a 368 on base, a 452 slugging. Man, hey, they got some bats on this team. More bats than pitching, but they do have someone like an Andre Palante, over 47 games last year, 10 starts, a 3.17 ERA, 3.98 FIP. Not a whole lot of strikeouts, but he's not going to give up a whole lot of home runs. I think this is a really solid pitcher to have on your team. And speaking of pitching, how about the Dark Knight making his return in the World Baseball Classic here? Not on a team currently. He was with, or a couple of years ago, he was with the Orioles. He was in the minor leagues last year, but Matt Harvey, it's been a long time since he's had the success that he was having in the mid-2010s. But hey, it's Matt Harvey, going up against minor leaguers, international players. Maybe he can have some success. Either way, a good veteran guy to have on your pitching staff. I think Italy is pretty underrated. I am going to go a B for Italy. I'm not really ready to go an A for them. I don't think they have enough pitching, but I would say a B, maybe even a B plus. I love some of these bats on this team, but Italy, definitely look out for them in this tournament. I think they're pretty underrated. Let's move on to Pool B and talk about one of the favorites in this entire World Baseball Classic, Japan. The winners of the first two World Baseball Classics. They finished third in the last two tournaments. This team is so good, man. We got to start off with Shohei Ohtani, arguably the best player in the entire world right now. I mean, what else is there to say? He's the modern day Babe Ruth, winning the MVP 2 years ago, finished second last year behind Aaron Judge. This guy is just absolutely incredible. He does it with the bat. He does it with the arm. What else is there to say? You got Yu Darvish. He's been one of the better pitchers in Major League Baseball for a while now. Remember when he pitched in the World Baseball Classic years ago? Those are fun times, man. You had Daisuke Matsuzaka in 2006. You had Yu Darvish after that. Man, Japan, they've just always had some good pitching. And speaking of good pitching, one of the next best pitchers to come out of Japan, he's only 21 years old, Roki Sasaki. Look out for this guy, man. 20 games last year, a 2.02 ERA, 12 strikeouts per nine. I mean, what else is there to say? I mean, look at this, 173 strikeouts over 129 and a third innings. That is just incredible. But they also have Yoshinobu Yamamoto. He pitched in 26 games last year, a 1.68 ERA, just under 10 strikeouts per 9. I mean, my goodness, they got pitching for days on this team. But as for the bats, you got guys like Lars Nootbaar. He had himself a good season with the Cardinals last year, had a 340 on base, a 448 slugging, a 125 WRC+. This is going to be a good player to have. And they also have Masataka Yoshida. I think he's going to be so good this year for the Red Sox. He has a lot of similar numbers in his time in Japan, very similar to Ichiro. I've talked about this before on other videos and other streams, but look at his all-time on-base percentage in Japan, a 419 career on-base percentage. The guy just gets so many balls off the bat. It is incredible. He walks a ton. I'm excited to see what he can do for the Red Sox this year, but they also got some power. They got Munetaka Murakami, hit 56 home runs last year. That was a record for a single season. Hit 318 with a 458 on base, a 711 slugging, and 1168 OPS overall. I mean, what else is there to say? What I really like about this Japan team is that they want to just win this thing every single year. They're just determined. They're motivated every single year to win this tournament. I mean, what else is there to say? They're an easy S tier. Let's talk about the Czech Republic. Not a whole lot of major league or minor league experience on this team, but this is a team that you can root for because a lot of these guys have just day jobs. They don't even play baseball really for a living. It's a team that you can rally behind. But the Czech Republic, like I said, not a whole lot of baseball or major league or minor league experience here. The one guy that stands out is Eric Sogard, a career Baseball Reference WAR of 6.8, hit 246 in his career, over 2,000 at-bats with a 313 on base, a 338 slugging. Last played for the Cubs back in 2021. But Eric Sogard, not going to be an amazing player, but he's a guy that stands out for this team. You do have Martin Cervenka, played 10 seasons in the minor leagues. He was with the Mets back in 2021, or not the Mets, but in the Mets minor league system back in 2021, playing for Syracuse. But over his career in 10 minor league seasons, hit 235 with a 305 on base, 350 slugging. He is their catcher. At least it's something. On the pitching side of things, not really a whole lot, but they do have one guy who's in the Diamondback system as of right now, Boris Viserka, more of a project guy, 6'3", 205 pounds. He throws in the low 90s as of right now, has a couple of other pitches. The Diamondbacks think maybe they could, end up getting something pretty good out of him, a guy that can throw some high velocity down the road. But other than that, for the Czech Republic, it could be a fun team considering what these guys do for a living every day. They're not really baseball players. Like I said, you got one guy on the team who's a firefighter. But you got to go F for right now with the Czech Republic. Who knows? Maybe they can go on a Cinderella run. That'd be pretty fun. And last but not least, in Pool B, we have Korea. Man, oh man, remember the KBO from a couple of years? Those were some fun times, weren't they? Oh my goodness, we had no Major League Baseball. We had the KBO, though. That was pretty fun while it lasted. But this is an underrated team, in my opinion. You got a couple of Major League guys here. You got Tommy Edman. This guy was off the charts last year. A 5.6 Fangraph WAR over 153 games. Hit 265, a 324 on base, 400 slugging. But the thing with Tommy Edman is he can play all over. He has a ton of speed. He's great on defense. And alongside him, you're going to have Ha-Seong Kim. What an up-the-middle defense this is going to be. I mean, these two guys, they have incredible gloves. Ha-Seong Kim was really good defensively. Fernando Tatis Jr. missed the entire season, and Ha-Seong Kim just stepped into the shortstop role just basically with ease. I mean, my goodness, he was incredible defensively and did a little better with the bat last year as well. But you got more international guys here, guys from the KBO. Let's start off with Byung-ho Park. Now, he was actually in the major leagues not too long ago with the Twins, went back to Korea, and he's been a pretty solid bat. Last year, had 35 home runs, had an OPS of 909. We also got someone like Jung Choi, where last year, he's a veteran guy, but this guy hits home runs every single year. He has 429 career home runs in the KBO. And actually, when it comes to Byung-ho Park, he has 349 career home runs over there as well. We have Hyun-Soo Kim. He was in the major leagues at one point with the Orioles and the Phillies, but taking a look over in the KBO last year, hit pretty well. had a 286 average, a 375 on base, 473 slugging, had 23 homers, 106 RBIs. And another guy that Korea has is Jung-Hoo Lee. This guy has been so good for the Kiwoom Heroes in the KBO for quite a bit now. I mean, look at the numbers that he's been putting up. Just last year, hit 349 with a 421 on base, a 575 slugging. In his career in the KBO, hitting 342 with a 407 on base, a 495 slugging. I mean, this guy, he absolutely could be a major league player at some point down the road. On the pitching side of things, you got a couple of guys. Kyung Hyun Kim was with the Cardinals not too long ago, ended up going back to the KBO, and he was really good last year. Over 28 starts, a 2.13 ERA, 8 strikeouts per 9, 2 walks per 9. And then you also have Hyun Jung Young, where he was with the Texas Rangers at one point in 2021. He went back to the KBO for 2022, had an ERA of 3.85 over 175 innings. You know, this is a respectable team. I like this Korean team. I think they definitely they have some upset potential in them. Now, are they as good as Japan? Absolutely not. That Japan team is just a juggernaut. But Korea, I definitely think they can make it out of these group stages. I definitely think they can make it to the quarterfinals easily. For me, I think it's a pretty solid team. I'm going to give them a B. On to Pool C, and let's talk about the USA. Right off the bat, I'm going to put them as an S tier. I mean, this team is extremely good. Take a look at this roster. Now, if I were to point out a weak point of this team, I would say it's the starting pitching when you compare it to other teams with their starting pitching in this tournament. The USA, I don't think, has the best starting pitching, but their bullpen is just top notch. But let's talk about the starters here. You got Lance Lynn. He did miss some time last year, but overall, another very good season for Lance Lynn. Adam Wainwright, I mean, my goodness, you know, like Giraffe Neck Mark likes to say, he says Justin Verlander ages like fine wine. Well, Adam Wainwright is another example of that as well. You got his teammate, Miles Michaelis, also in the National League. Merrill Kelly had himself a solid season last year. You got Kyle Freeland, who improved last year as well. Brady Singer, who is a guy who took a step forward last year, and I still think he has more potential. I still think he can take another step forward. But when you look at some of the bullpen arms here, oh my goodness, you got Daniel Bard. I mean, Jason Adam was really good for the Rays last year. You got David Bednar. Who else we got in here? We got Adam Ottavino, pretty decent setup man. You got Ryan Presley. You got Brooks Raley. You got Devin Williams. I mean, you got some legit closers on this team. And I mentioned this earlier where, you know, starters are still ramping up their innings during this time, but for relievers, not really a big deal for them. You know, they got to more pay attention to just refining mechanics, building consistency, you know, building up being able to work back-to-back days. Not as much of a big deal for relievers in spring training as it is for starters. So to me, while I do think the starting pitching isn't as strong as other teams, this bullpen is easily going to be the key for this team. And of course, we have just some really good bats. We got JT Realmuto, in my opinion, the best catcher in the game. Will Smith as well. Kawagashioka also there. Now, look at some of these infielders. What bats you got here? I mean, my goodness, Pete Alonso, Tim Anderson, Nolan Arenado, Paul Goldschmidt, the MVP last year. Nolan Arenado was in the running for the MVP as well. Trey Turner just signed a fat contract. Bobby Wick Jr., one of the top young players in the game. Look at the outfielders. You got Mookie Betts. Jeff McNeil with a good season last year. Cedric Mullins got off to a slow start last year, but ended up having a pretty solid year. Really good a couple years ago. Schwarber with the power. I mean, I should have mentioned Mike Trout at the start of this thing. You got Mike Trout, you know, but Shohei Ohtani, I think, personally has overtaken him as the best player in Major League Baseball, but Mike Trout is still Mike Trout. Modern day Mickey Mantle. Kyle Tucker, extremely underrated. I mean, my goodness, this team, like, even look at the coaches. You got Ken Griffey Jr., you got Andy Pettit, Brian McCann, Mark DeRosa. What the heck is going on with this team? Absolutely incredible. I'm excited to see what Team USA can do in this thing. Moving on to my homeland, Great Britain. Yes, fun fact, if you didn't know, I was actually born in England. I became a citizen about 3 years ago, believe it or not. But Great Britain, you might be thinking, do they even have baseball players? Don't they play cricket over there? They actually got some talent. If we go take a look here with England, their star player is one of the top prospects in the game. Harry Ford, picked 12th overall in the draft back in 2021. He's been pretty good so far in the Mariners system. At A-ball last year, hit 274, a 425 on base, 438 slugging. This is a guy, he's a catcher, but he's very athletic. So Harry Ford, this could be a pretty good showing for him on an international stage. They also got Trace Thompson on the Dodgers. He was really good for them off the bench last year. Also taking a look at some of the prospects, you got Matt Koperniak in the Cardinals system as of right now. He was pretty good last year in Double-A. Taking a look here, he hit 288 with a 359 on base, a 442 slugging over 106 games. He was pretty good in college as well. I mean, take a look at what he did in college. 106 games, hit 374 with a 464 on base, 587 slugging. Hey, just saying, you got some talent. You got another prospect here, Tanaj Thomas. He's in the Pirates system at Double-A as of right now. He's got a future slider grade of 60, 55 currently. Decent fastball. Okay numbers last year. If you take a look, 50 and 2/3 innings, a 3.02 ERA, a 3.63 FIP. Hey, you got a decent picture here. Speaking of pictures, remember Vance Worley? This guy finished 3rd in Rookie of the Year voting back in 2011. Remember that Phillies rotation? Man, you had Roy Halladay, you had Cliff Lee, you had Roy Oswalt, you had Cole Hamels, and Vance Worley was the number 5. He was Rookie of the Year that year. My goodness. But he's been more pitching independent ball over the last couple of years. You got a guy in Michael Roth. This was someone, he's been playing more independent ball, but he had himself some success in the minor leagues. Taking a look over his career, in 7 seasons, he went 49 and 41, a 3.90 ERA. Not too bad, if you ask me. So that's a decent guy to have on the team. You have here Andre Scrub. He was pitching for the Astros a couple of years ago. Not great numbers overall, but in his career, over 38 games in the major leagues, a 3.32 ERA. Not too bad. And we got one more guy here, Akil Morris. He was drafted back in 2010. Not a whole lot in the major leagues. He had more seasons in the minor leagues, 10 seasons overall, 3.60 ERA over 500 innings pitched. So, England is actually not bad. I mean, not amazing talent by any means. They got a couple of, Trace Thompson is probably their best overall player, but Harry Ford, a good prospect as well. It's a fun team. You got some players here, someone like a Vance Worley who had success in the major leagues. And I'm not going to give them, an amazing grade here. I'll go D for Great Britain right now, but I think this is a team, they could get a couple of wins in group play. Now, will they make it out of this tough group? I don't know, but they got something here. On to Mexico, and they got themselves a fun team this year. You got to start off with Julio Urias, man. This guy's been just fantastic over the last couple of seasons. Last year, 31 games, a 2.16 ERA, FIP at a 3.71, a bit higher than that ERA, but still, Urias, he is so good. 8.5 strikeouts per 9, 2 walks per 9, right around a home run per 9. Really excited to see what he can do in this tournament. You got Taijuan Walker, who just signed with the Phillies this past offseason. He's been pretty solid over the last couple of years. You got Patrick Sandoval, an underrated arm in Major League Baseball with the Angels. You got Jose Urquidy. To me, at this point, he's more of like a back-end kind of a guy. But Jose Urquidy, a very serviceable pitcher, especially in this tournament. But they have bats as well. If we go take a look here, we got Alejandro Kirk. He was off the charts last year. 372 on base, hit 285, had 14 homers. Really excited to see him. You got Randy Arozarena. In my opinion, I still think he has another step forward that he could take. I still think he could tap into some more power, but Randy Arozarena, a very good bat. Very excited to see him. Luis Urias, pretty solid guy to have on your team. He can play multiple positions. I like that. You got Alex Verdugo. I definitely am looking for more out of Alex Verdugo this year with the Red Sox. I felt like, he hit 280 last year, but I want to see a bit more power out of him. I want to see a bit more of a better ability to get on base, some better base running as well. I think his defense could be a bit better as well. Speaking of defense, you got Jarren Duran, who had the infamous play in center field when the Blue Jays scored like 85 runs or whatever it was, and he couldn't find the ball and the ball just flew over his head and he had no idea. He showed some flashes last year. I still think Jarren Duran can be a really good player, but in this tournament, going up against other he's been really good in the minor leagues. So I think going up against minor leaguers, international players, guys have been playing independent ball. I think Jarren Duran, this could be a bit of a confidence boost for him in this tournament. I'm excited to see what he can do. I really like this Mexico team. I think they could go on a run here. I don't think they're quite an S tier, but I definitely think they're an A. Let's talk about Colombia, and they got some decent players on this team. Starting off with Jose Quintana, was really good for the Pirates and the Cardinals last year. 32 starts, 2.93 ERA, 2.99 FIP, signed with the Mets this past offseason. I think he's going to be a really solid arm for them. Remember Julio Teheran? This guy was one of the more solid pitchers in the game at one point. Hasn't really been able to find his way over the last few years, but he did sign a minor league deal with the Padres. Let's see if they can get him back on track. But in his career, he's had a lot of success. A 3.80 ERA, just under 1,400 innings pitched. This guy could definitely help out this team, absolutely. But when it comes to other pitchers on this team, you're going to see more prospects. You got someone like a Santiago Flores in the Pirates system. Good fastball, good curveball. Hasn't been able to fully put it together as of right now, but he's got some talent. You got a Denise Correa, who last year with the Cubs AA team was okay. 40 innings, a 2.93 ERA, a 3.96 FIP. However, the strikeout to walk ratio wasn't amazing. So in AAA, he did get his strikeouts up, but he was still walking some guys. So let's see if he can take a step forward this year with the Cubs. You got Rio Gomez, son of the late Pedro Gomez of ESPN, in the Red Sox system in AA last year. Not great numbers, but in AA the year prior, he did put up some decent numbers. 11 strikeouts per 9, under 3 walks per 9. So it looks like last year he was having less command. He was giving up home runs. So let's see if he can get himself back on track this year. But this is a guy who has some talent. On the offensive side of things, you have Gio Urshela, was with the Twins last year, got traded to the Angels this offseason. Solid player. 144 games last year, hit 285, a 338 on base, 119 WRC plus. Good glove out there. I think he's a solid player here for Colombia. You got Harold Ramirez, who last year hit 300 with a 343 on base. Solid player for the Twins last year. Jorge Alfaro with my Red Sox, signing a minor league deal. He's got a good arm out there as a catcher. He's got some power. I like the power that he has. That definitely could give a boost for this lineup. And someone like Jordan Diaz, he got called up to the major leagues last year, one of the A's higher prospects. I believe he was in the top 15 last year. I could be wrong on that, but 15 games, hit 265. In AAA last year, over 26 games, he hit 348 with a 383 on base, a 545 slugging. At AA with Oakland last year, hit 15 home runs. I mean, this guy was really good last year. A good hit tool, a future hit tool of 60. So, hey, you got some bats here. You got some pictures. I like Colombia a little bit. I think they got some upset potential. I don't think they're one of the best teams in this tournament, but I think they're a pretty decent team. I'm going to go a B for Colombia. And last but not least, for Pool C, we have Canada, led by one of the best players in Major League Baseball, Freddie Freeman, in his first season with the Dodgers last year. 159 games, hit 325, a 407 on base, 511 slugging, 21 homers, a 157 WRC plus. It is pretty nice to have a guy like Freddie Freeman in your lineup. You also got Tyler O'Neill. 2021, he had a really good season. Took a step back last year, was dealing with some injuries, some inconsistencies. Let's see what he can do here in 2023, competing with Dylan Carlson for the center fielder job. Let's see how that all shakes out. You got Abraham Toro, who I feel like he just hasn't fully hit his stride yet. I think he's got good potential. I mean, if you look here, Fangraphs, they rated him a future 55 hit tool, 55 raw power, 60 speed, 60 throwing. I think Abraham Toro could be a good player. Just hasn't really been able to put the numbers on the board. But they also have Bo Naylor, one of the top prospects in the game. The number 1 prospect for the Cleveland Guardians as of right now. Came up for a very, very small cup of coffee last year. Didn't get any hits over 5 plate appearances. But last year, in AAA, he was pretty solid, a 366 on base, a 514 slugging. He's still got to work on that defense a little bit. Currently a 40. It could be a future 45, but this is a guy, he's got power. He's got some speed as well for a catcher. Look out for Bo Naylor this year. And speaking of other prospects on the offensive side, you got Otto Lopez. He came up for a very small sample size last year, but last year in AAA, over 91 games, hit 297, a 378 on base. This guy can hit. He's got a little speed as well, 14 stolen bases. On the pitching side of things, they did have Nick Pivetta, but he had to withdraw from the World Baseball Classic this year. But they do still have someone like a Cal Quantrill. He threw a lot of innings last year. It's too bad they're not going to have Nick Pivetta because those are two guys. Well, yes, they are still building up their innings over spring. Those are guys that can, they're workhorse kind of guys. But that would have been pretty nice to have those two. But Cal Quantrill still here. 32 starts last year, a 3.38 ERA, a 4.12 FIP. And you also got someone like a Matt Brash, who I think could be pretty valuable. More likely, he's going to be more of a bullpen guy in his career. The guy's stuff is just absolutely nasty. But I think that could serve well for Canada in this tournament. A very high leverage arm. He was really good out of the bullpen last year. The guy is just absolutely filthy. There's just not a lot of depth on this Canada team. You got some bats. You do got a couple of arms here. You got some more minor league arms as well. I just don't think there's a whole lot of depth with Canada. You know, they got talent, so that is one thing they do have. You know, I'm debating. I almost feel like you could go C+ or a B. I'll go B because they do have, having someone like Freddie Freeman on this team is really solid. You got a couple other decent bats, some good prospects on this team as well. I'll go B for Canada. And heading into the last pool, which I think could be the toughest pool in this entire tournament, Pool D, starting off with Puerto Rico, led by Francisco Lindor, one of the best players in the game, had a great bounce back season last year. Played 161 games, only one shy of a full season, hit 270, a 339 on base, 449 slugging, 26 home runs, a 127 WRC+. Very good defense out there at shortstop. Francisco Lindor, one of the best players in the game. Javier Baez had a bad season last year with the Tigers. First season with them after getting a big contract, did not live up to the expectations. Hit 238, a 278 on base, a 393 slugging, 17 homers, but only a 90 WRC+. The defense was still pretty good with him, but Lindor, Baez up the middle, I think that's pretty solid. You do have Christian Vasquez, one of my favorite players. Very sad to see him go to the Twins, but very good defensively. Not going to give you too much with the bat, but he's going to be a good leader out there, and he's going to give you some good defense. He's going to work well with the pitching staff. I'll get to the pitching staff in just a second. That's what I do think is the strength of this team. But you do have someone like an Eddie Rosario, very good in the playoffs a couple of years ago, but a bad season last year. He did miss a lot of time, had some stuff going on with his eyes, but saying that he's looking, pretty good so far in the spring, according to Brian Snicker, saying he's been a different guy so far. So I'm excited to see what Eddie Rosario can do this year. We got Kike Hernandez. I completely forgot he was going to be in this thing. I love me some Kike Hernandez. Had some issues last year with the hip flexor, the lower back. Overall, 93 games, only hit 222. He basically was just non-existent last year. Good defense last year, but from a couple of years ago, he was so good that year. Hit 250, a 337 on base, 449 slugging, 20 homers, 60 RBIs. He was really good defensively that year. He just is also just a high energy kind of a player. Team Puerto Rico, full of energy on this team. He's only going to add to it. Fun player to have on your team. I think he'll be a good addition. You also got Martin Maldonado as well. Look at that. Christian Vasquez, Martin Maldonado reuniting for Team Puerto Rico, winning a World Series for the Astros last year. We all know what you're going to be getting with Martin Maldonado. Not a whole lot of bat, a little power here and there, but he's going to bring you some good defense. He's going to work well with the pitching staff. I think having those two guys coming off of a World Series championship, I think it's going to be very valuable for Puerto Rico. But now let's move on to the pitching side of things. You got Marcus Stroman. Pretty decent first season with the Cubs last year, 25 starts. 3.50 ERA, a 3.76 FIP. I think he'll be pretty solid. Remember, he was pretty fun in the last World Baseball Classic, pitching for Team USA. Now he's switching his jersey over to Puerto Rico. We got Jose Barrios, not a good season last year, but I think he can have a bounce back season this year. The Blue Jays are going to need it if they want to win a championship. The guy is still a workhorse. 32 starts last year, 172 innings pitched, 5.23 ERA, 4.55 FIP. Again, looking for some better numbers, but Jose Barrios has the track record. Now, they got probably the best closer in the entire universe in Edwin Diaz. This guy was absolutely off the charts last year. A 3-win player on Fangraphs as a closer, and that is really good. 61 games, a 1.31 ERA, 0.90 FIP, 17 strikeouts per nine. That's a whole lot of strikeouts, man. 32 saves. Will they have the trumpets at this thing? Can they get the trumpets? Can they please do the trumpets when he comes in? I just want to see the trumpets. But they got a couple other guys in the minor leagues. Speaking of the Mets, got a lot of Mets here. A lot of Mets on the Puerto Rican squad. You got Dominic Hamill in high A ball last year, had a 2.59 ERA, just about 12 strikeouts per nine, 4 walks per nine. Needs to work on getting those down, but overall solid season for him. You got Anthony Maldonado, AAA last year with the Marlins. he was pretty decent. A 1.74 ERA, a 2.15 FIP, 12 strikeouts per 9, 2 walks per 9, kept the home runs down. He was pretty solid at AA as well. The FIP was a full run higher than his ERA, but the strikeout and the walk numbers did look pretty good. Gave up a few home runs at AA, but overall, we got a guy here who is looking pretty decent. You got a Luis Quinones, I think I'm saying that right, in the Blue Jays system at AA last year. Not amazing with the ERA and the FIP, but he did have 11.5 strikeouts per 9. He just needs to get the walks down. He's had a lot of problems in his career so far in the minor leagues with the control. Now, with the Puerto Rican squad, there's a lot of good players. You did have Carlos Correa on this team. That would have been huge, but he had to pull out due to the birth of his child. I think with Puerto Rico, they have some talent. I just feel like they're maybe lacking a little depth. I feel like they could use another bat or two. So I'm not going to quite put them at an S tier. I'm going to go A for Puerto Rico, but they definitely have a chance here to win this entire thing. On to Nicaragua. Not a whole lot on this squad, but they do have Johnny Lasagna, Jonathan Loaizaga, one of the better relievers in the game for the Yankees. I'm looking for a big year out of him. He did miss some time last year, but he had 48 innings pitched, a 4.13 ERA, 3.57 FIP. Looking to see what he can do for the Yankees this year. You have Erasmo Ramirez, who was pretty decent last year for the Nationals, 60 games, 2.92 ERA. FIP was a bit higher at 4.05. You had JC Ramirez, who is one of the more veteran guys on this team. He's had a long career in the minors. He did miss a few seasons, but he pitched for AAA for the Twins last year. Didn't have great results, but this is a guy, he's been around for a little while. Let's see what he can do. And we got some prospects as well. We got Rodney Theophile, I think I'm saying that correctly. He's in the national system. An ERA of 5.03 last year at high A ball. So not really too much there, but he's a guy. He's a guy that can help out. You got Carlos Rodriguez in the Brewers system. As of last year, he was the number 23 prospect for them. In high A last year, he hit 268, had a 355 on base. Not a whole lot of power from him, but this is a guy he can definitely contribute. Milcar Perez in the Mariners system. He was the number 16 prospect last year. Has a pretty advanced approach at the plate. Good plate discipline. But he's had a lot of injuries so far in his career. Did not do very well last year in low A ball. Over 54 games, only hit 145. He hit 296 the year prior. I mean, it was only 6 games, but over in rookie ball in 2021 last year, he had 45 games there. He hit 310, a 463 on base. So there is potential with him. Scouts do like him. Let's see what he can do in this tournament. And then we have a couple of former major leaguers as well. You got Cheslor Cuthbert, over 1,000 at-bats in his career. Didn't really do all that much, but this is a veteran guy. You got someone like an Alex Blandino, over 200 at-bats in his career. So there's some experience here. Nicaragua, they got a couple of decent players. I don't think they're really going to do all that much. I don't think they're one of the worst teams. I'll go D for Nicaragua. On to Team Israel, who got 6th place in the last World Baseball Classic. One of the more surprising teams in that tournament. And they're back again. They got a few decent players on this team. Leading the way is Jock Peterson. Another good season at the plate for him for the Giants last year. 134 games, hit 274, a 353 on base, 521 slugging, a 144 WRC plus, 23 home runs. Not amazing defense from him last year, but hey, Jock Peterson, he's going to bring some swagger to this team. You got someone like Alex Dickerson, who's had some success in his career in the major leagues. Not really a whole lot last year, 13 games with the Braves, didn't really do a whole bunch. As of right now, he is without a team. But on the pitching side of things, you got Dean Kramer last year, had himself a bit of a breakout season with the Orioles, 21 games, or 21 starts, 22 games overall. 3.23 ERA, a 3.80 FIP. Pretty solid numbers. This guy's going to help out this team. But they got some interesting minor leaguers on this team. You got Zach Gelliff, who last year was really solid in the minors, and he's the number 3 prospect as of right now for the Oakland A's. In his career in the minors so far, 527 at-bats, hitting 287 with a 371 on base, 25 homers, a 490 slugging over 132 games. Hey, this guy could definitely make some noise. This could be a good showing for him. And speaking of a guy who had himself a good year last year in the minors, Matt Mervis, who could absolutely have a lot of playing time for the Cubs. The Cubs love this guy. Taking a look at what he did last year, I mean, my goodness, he was at high A, double A, and AAA last year, 137 games. He had 36 home runs, 119 RBIs, a 379 on base, a 605 slugging, 984 OPS overall. Look out for Matt Mervis this year, man. I think he could have himself a pretty good year. You also have someone like a Spencer Horwitz, who is the number 18 prospect in the Blue Jays system as of right now. So far, over 283 games in the minors. He's hitting 290. He's got a 390 on base, 453 slugging. Could definitely see some more power there. But hey, this is not a bad looking team. If you ask me, I'd like to see a bit more depth on this team, but they got some talent here. But I think the depth does hold them back just a smidge. I'm going to go C for Team Israel. You know a team I really like in this World Baseball Classic, and a team that I think is getting slept on, and that's Venezuela. This team is really good. I mean, where to start? You got offense, you got pitching. Let's start off with Ronald Acuna Jr. Not the typical Ronald Acuna Jr. season that we're used to seeing last year. Was coming back from an ACL tear. It wasn't a bad season by any means, but we've definitely seen better from him. A superstar player. I think Ronald Acuna Jr., I think he's going to have himself a big year this year. I think he's going to have a lot of fun in this tournament. I could definitely see him being one of the top players in this entire World Baseball Classic. Jose Altuve. I mean, I don't think people realize how good this guy was last year for the Houston Astros. I mean, you had just so many good players on that Astros team, but Jose Altuve, I feel like flew under the radar last year. Was really good. Hit 300, a 387 on base, 533 slugging. I think people just love to hate Jose Altuve. They didn't realize how good this guy was. You got other bats all over the place. You got Gleyber Torres, who had himself a pretty decent bounce back season last year with the Yankees. You got Salvador Perez, who continues to be a pretty solid hitter in the game. Had how many home runs? Like 200 home runs 2 years ago or whatever it was. Anthony Santander, speaking of power, this guy had 33 home runs last year. You got a veteran guy in David Peralta, signing with the Dodgers this offseason. I mean, last year, he was okay. Wasn't amazing by any means, but a solid veteran guy. Speaking of veteran guys, you got Miguel Cabrera going into his last season of his major league career. Hey, never hurts to have someone like Miguel Cabrera on your squad. Eugenio Suarez had 31 home runs last year. Andres Jimenez had a breakout season last year. Over a 6-win player on Fangraphs. Hit 297, a 371 on base, 466 slugging. Was really good defensively. I love how this lineup is looking for Venezuela, but they got some pitching as well. The newest Minnesota Twin, Pablo Lopez. I'm looking for him to even take another step forward this year for the Twins. 3.75 ERA, 3.71 FIP last year. Luis Garcia, hey, rocking the baby. Can he still do that in this? Is the pitch timer and everything going to be in the World Baseball Classic? I don't know. Someone let me know. But Luis Garcia continues to be one of the better pitchers in the game. Ranger Suarez, he was good for the Phillies last year, going to the World Series. You had German Marquez, who was a little better in the second half last year. Hey, this is a guy that can give you a ton of innings. Eduardo Rodriguez went a bit MIA last year, but when Eduardo Rodriguez is right, when he's healthy, this is a good guy to have on your pitching staff. Didn't do amazing last year. 17 starts, a 4.05 ERA, a 4.43 FIP. But if we go back to 2021, had a 3.9 Fangraph WAR. The ERA was a little high at 4.74, but the FIP was a 3.32, 10.5 strikeouts per 9, under 3 walks per 9, right around a home run per 9. Eduardo Rodriguez, he's a solid guy to have on your pitching staff. Jesus Luzardo had himself a bounce back season this past year with the Marlins. I really like a lot about this Venezuela team. I really do. I think they're being slept on. They're in a very tough group, you know, with some of these other teams that I've mentioned here. We haven't even talked about Dominican Republic. Stay tuned. That's up next. But you got some solid teams here. To me, they have way more depth than the Puerto Rican team. The Puerto Rican team has some good players, but Venezuela has just so much more depth. I'm going to go an S tier for Venezuela. I think they're a really good team. And last but not least, we have the Dominican Republic. My goodness, this team is off the charts. I raved about USA. I raved about Japan. I just raved about Team Venezuela. But this team is incredible. Let's just take a look at this murderer's row of a lineup to start things off. You got Juan Soto. Not a Juan Soto kind of a year last year, a down year for Juan Soto, a 3.8 Fangraph WAR, but Juan Soto is Juan Soto. I think he's going to have a monster year this year. Man, what else is there to say? It's Juan Soto. Manny Machado, MVP finalist, his teammate with the San Diego Padres. He was so good last year. Just signed an extension with the Padres. I'm sure that's a weight lifted off of his shoulders. He was extremely good last year. Hit 298, a 366 on base, 531 slugging. Great defense over there at third base. Man, oh man, the fact that you have these two guys on the team, that's already just amazing. But it doesn't even come close to ending there. You got Julio Rodriguez, the rookie of the year last year. My goodness. I mean, this guy looked like he had been playing for years last year with the Mariners. 132 games at 284, a 345 on base, 509 slugging, a 146 WRC plus, 28 homers, 25 steals, and that was just in his rookie season. Julio Rodriguez is going to be absolutely amazing in his career. Speaking of absolutely amazing, how about Rafael Devers getting, these guys are getting contract extensions all over the place. Why? Because they're really good. Rafael Devers getting himself a 10-year, over $300 million contract. Really good with the Red Sox last year. Had some injuries in the second half, but overall, one of the best hitters in the game. Wander Franco, speaking of injuries, did have some injuries last year. Missed almost half a season, but not bad. Overall, in the 83 games that he did play, hit 277, a 328 on base, 417 slugging. Had some steals, 8 steals. It wasn't the best season for Wander Franco, but I'm expecting a good season from him this season. Speaking of shortstops, how about World Series champion Jeremy Pena? This guy was really solid last year. He didn't put up quite the numbers that Julio Rodriguez did, but that's why I was calling Jeremy Pena at one point the forgotten rookie, because this guy was just so good. He just ended up, Julio Rodriguez may have been the best rookie, but Jeremy Pena ended up being the winningest rookie in all of Major League Baseball last year. It doesn't even stop there. You got guys like Teoscar Hernandez on this team who had 25 home runs. What is this guy going to bat, like 7th or 8th? Had 25 home runs last year. This lineup is completely ridiculous. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. will not be in the World Baseball Classic, did pull out, but even without him, this lineup is just so good. Let's talk about the pitching. Sandy Alcantara, the Cy Young last year, 2.28 ERA, 2.99 FIP, almost 230 innings pitched over 32 starts. This guy is awesome. One of the best pitchers in Major League Baseball. Christian Javier took a step forward last year, was really good in the playoffs, a 2.54 ERA last year over 30 games. Johnny Cueto going to the Marlins. I think he's going to be a good pickup for the Marlins for this coming year. He was really good last year, a 3.35 ERA, 3.79 FIP. Just a solid middle of the rotation kind of a guy. How about Roansy Contreras, young guy for the Pittsburgh Pirates? He was pretty good last year. 21 games, 3.79 ERA. I think he's just going to keep getting better and better. And you got some bullpen arms here. You got Rafael Montero signing an extension this past offseason. Was so good in the playoffs for the Astros last year. Over 71 games, a 2.37 ERA. Just under 10 strikeouts per 9. You have Camilo Duvall, who was really good for the Giants last year. I mean, this team is just so good. They are absolutely very capable of winning this entire thing. I think they could win this thing easily. So easy S tier for me. What else is there to say? These are the 4 best teams in this entire tournament to me. In the A tier, we got Mexico, we got Puerto Rico. I definitely think they have a chance. Then you got some pretty solid teams here in the middle, and in the C and the D and the F tier. These are the teams that round it out for me. But let me know all of your thoughts down below in the comments. Would you move any of these teams up? Would you move some of them down? Am I underrating some of these teams? Am I overrating some of these teams? Let me know all your thoughts down below in the comments. And also look out for my predictions. I will be having predictions for the World Baseball Classic as well. Make sure to be on the lookout for that. But everyone, that's all I have for right now. Thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you next time.